Hey everybody, I'm Ebony. This is Ebony's Creativity. Thank you so much for joining me here on my channel. Today's video is another first. So we had our first bold piece, our first mid-century modern piece, and now I'm doing my first bed in today's video. Typically each piece I flip has its own set of challenges, and today's flip is no different because I had the most difficult time choosing a color. I was looking for what's kind of selling on Amazon, at Pottery Barn, and all the big retailers. I saw a ton of white beds, so I did not want to do white. However, I know that's a neutral that sells well, so I was kind of conflicted. I picked something that I thought would be a good compromise. I didn't want to go pink because that's kind of expected when you're dealing with girls' furniture. So I just decided to kind of do what I felt was right for me for this piece. Hopefully it sells quickly. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Let's hop right on into the flip. Here is today's flip, and it is a free find from Facebook Marketplace. I do have a video on the channel how to find free furniture, so make sure you watch that if you want to know how I always get these good finds. This lady told me that this was her childhood bed. She had carried it around for many years, and now she just had to get rid of it due to space constraints. So I happily took it off her hands. I loved the rosettes, and I just thought it was a really cute bed. So if I had a daughter, I would love to give this to her, but I don't. So we're going to flip it for a profit like we always do here. The first step is sanding, as always. So I'm using 220 grit sandpaper as always. Now, I was still trying to figure out what I was going to do with this bed, and I saw a lot of wood poking through, and I was tempted to leave it wooden because I thought it was really beautiful. It kind of has like a whitewashed look to it, but there's just so much particle board, as you can see here on the edge of this. There is like the thinnest veneer I've ever seen, and I figured if I tried to sand it all down, at some point I was going to burn through the veneer and have to paint anyways, so I just went ahead and painted for this. I really was tempted to leave it wood, but I just had to go ahead and paint because I do not have the tools to sand down the rosettes, and I didn't want to make a mess of this. I'm trying to do this flip in one day. This project that I'm doing, the video is going to be put up on Sunday. I'm doing this whole video on Saturday. I really wanted to make sure I got a video out this week since I was vacationing last week and I wasn't able to get one up. So I am burning the midnight oil. I started this flip at 10:35 a.m. and it is currently 12:15 a.m. the next day on Sunday. I told myself I was going to be very diligent this year about posting videos. So if you guys are enjoying my videos, please leave me comments, thumbs up the videos, and make sure you are subscribed to my channel. There are quite a few small tight areas that I can't reach with my orbital sander on this bed, so I am switching between using the orbital sander and doing some hand sanding as well. And on the rosettes and kind of the detailed areas on here, I did not want to do any sanding, so I went ahead and broke out my liquid sandpaper, and I'm just going to rub those down with the liquid sandpaper in lieu of sanding. I also used the liquid sandpaper on certain parts of the post that I didn't think I would be able to really sand well with my orbital sander. I didn't realize quite how much effort that would take to get that footboard accomplished. So before I start the headboard, I'm going to go ahead and do the side rails just to give my hands a little break. And I'm still just using my orbital sander and 220 grit sandpaper to scuff sand these. If you are a newbie flipper or watching these videos to learn, I want to try to teach something in every video. So here's the lesson for this one. How do you know how much to sand? Do you see how there's no luster left on this first piece that I'm lifting? You can still see luster left on this piece. That luster is what I'm trying to get rid of. So this piece has a white primer, as you can kind of see in certain areas, like around the edges, and it's clearly been painted over the primer. I'm trying to get that top layer off and leave the primer. So thank you for attending my TED Talk for this video. I did notice this one little damaged area, so I just put some wood filler in it, and that should take care of that. So now the footboard and the rails are scuff sanded, and I'm going to go ahead and try to do the posts next. And I found that I was able to use my orbital sander for the long portion because it wasn't too round. And so it kind of had a round shape, but it was more elongated, and I didn't feel like I would damage the curves on it. So my technique is just to move as fast as possible. This is not sped up in any way. This is in real time, so you can see how quickly I was moving. And my technique was just to keep the post turning This way my orbital sander would not flatten any one area because it was never on one area for too long. So if you just keep the sander moving and keep the post moving, you can use an orbital sander on something like this without worrying about flattening any round shapes. And then I resorted back to hand sanding in the areas where I did feel like the orbital sander might flatten any round shapes. And here's what all 4 of the posts look like when they were done being scuff sanded. And now that I can no longer put it off, I'm going to go ahead and start scuff sanding the headboard. And the clips of me sanding the headboard are sped up just because I felt like it was a little redundant watching me do the same thing that I did to the footboard. But I did follow the same process, 220 grit sandpaper, hitting as much as I can with the orbital sander, and then using the liquid sandpaper on the parts that I could not sand. The last bit that I'm sanding is the little damaged area that I put wood filler in. And now that all my sanding is complete, it is time to clean. In my bucket is just some very hot water and some Dawn, and that is what I'm going to be using to wipe everything down. For most of the areas, I was able to wipe it down with the microfiber cloth, but for the areas that I could not reach with my cloth, I had to break out my handy dandy furniture toothbrush. So now that everything is clean, I'm going to break out my bin primer and pour some into my Wagner 3500 spray gun. Most people are afraid to spray this primer, but I have no problems with it. If you have a difficult time cleaning it out of your spray gun, I do have a video where I show you how I do that process, and I will link it below and put an iCard. At this point, it's about 2:30 because the sanding took me quite a while. So now I'm just starting to prime everything. And I'm thinking there's got to be a better way than laying all these pieces flat, turning the post on each side to spray everything, turning the footboard around to spray both sides. I'm like, there's got to be a better way. And then the footboard decided to take a tumble. And at that point, a genius idea struck me. So I decided to abort doing it the long way and assemble the bed. This way it would stand up on its own and I could spray everything at the same time. So at this point, the headboard is primed and the footboard is not, nor are the posts. I had the most difficult time trying to show color differences in this video. So just take note as you kind of watching the final images of the initial color. Notice kind of how it's like a little buttery, kind of a yellow undertone to it. And just keep that in your mind. I'm spraying over it with white, so it's a little bit difficult to see on camera, but I tried my best, so just work with me. You can really see it if you look at the headboard compared to the footboard. That'll show you kind of the difference between a stark white and the buttery color that was the original finish. Here is how everything looked after one coat of primer. And here is how everything looked after I applied the second coat of primer. And in this clip, it is still a little bit wet. So certain areas are dry and certain areas are not yet. After going back and forth for a while, here is the color that I decided on. Hopefully you can tell how much different this is from the original color. It looks like it's kind of similar because it's in the same family, but that one had a yellow undertone if you can remember, and this one is more of like a grayish color. I came really close to painting this in mustard yellow. I really think this would look nice in a pop of color, but the bottom line is I am running out of storage space and I need to get a little bit of the pieces in my furniture hoard out of here. So I just wanted to do a neutral color that I feel might sell well. Also, if I had done a pop of color, it might have made a better video because it would have showed up a lot better than going from the buttery color this was before to stark white with the primer to this grayish color. I did try to adjust my settings, but I wasn't really able to get a true color payoff to how this looked in person. So I just kept painting. Hopefully you can tell on the left is the primer and on the right is the new paint. And if anybody was wondering about the time check, it is currently about 5 p.m. in this clip. While you're watching these clips of me continuing to paint, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who has recently subscribed to my channel. I've been working on my consistency, as I stated, and seeing you guys subscribe and engage just really motivates me to continue to post, so thank you so much. So here's how everything looked after one coat of paint was applied and is still drying. In this clip, I had just applied the second coat, so it's still wet, but this is the color after 2 coats of paint. Here are the materials that I'm going to be using for this next segment. I have this pink paint from Michaels, and I'm just using it to go in and paint over the roses. This was another reason why I didn't want to paint the bed pink, is because I knew I wanted to paint the flowers pink, and I wanted the flowers to be able to kind of pop. Here are the pink flowers on the footboard, and I did the same on the headboard, and here's what those look like. I must admit this is not my favorite shade of green, but I'm just using what I had on hand to go ahead and get these leaves painted. So here is the footboard, and here is the headboard. I didn't really like how flat this was looking. Then I remember I had some of this rose gold metallic paint from my rose gold metallic furniture flip that I will also link in this video. So I just brushed a little bit of that on to try to kind of make the color pink pop. My initial plan was to use this more so as like a highlight, but I think I ended up applying slightly more than what I really wanted to, but I just went with it. Once I finished applying the rose gold, then I went in with some gold rub and buff, and I applied that to the flowers as well as to this little rope looking trim piece on the headboard and the footboard. Surprisingly, this was my first time ever using rub and buff. I really like how smoothly it applies, so I'm looking forward to using it again in future projects. If you've never used rub and buff, it has almost like a whipped consistency, which I found really easy to control, and I'm very glad it wasn't more liquidy because I was terrified of getting any extra paint drips or any kind of runoff onto my grayish paint. So the texture of it kind of really made me feel like I had a lot of control over it, which I really liked a lot. So after I finished doing that little rope kind of detail in the rub and buff, I just decided to also add a little rub and buff onto the flowers because I felt like the rose gold and the antique gold kind of mismatched. So I just added it onto the flowers because why not? My final step will be to apply 2 coats of polyacrylic. So here you see me putting that into my sprayer and doing 2 very heavy coats. And without further ado, here are some finished images of the bed. I had to work for a whole day, but I did accomplish my goal of completing this flip within 24 hours. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know how you feel about the final product in the comment section below. Please watch more of my videos, subscribe to my channel if you have not already, and I will talk to you guys in my next flip. There are over 50 furniture flips on this channel, so if you have the time, please select another one of my videos to watch from the choices on your screen or in the description box below. Thanks so much for watching.